Topic that's a topic that always is the students are always interested in is nutrition, no matter where they are in their in the semester. Nutrition is always of interest, and I've noticed that many students have nutrition in one way or the other as part of their behavior change project. So hopefully this will be of interest and of help. Two topics or two definitions that would be of use to know is a DRI, and those are the recommendations that are a set of recommendations for optimal health, and the RDA is the recommendation of the average daily amount that should be consumed of an individual nutrient to offset or to avoid a nutritional deficiency. The guidelines that we see on our food labels are based upon the guidelines that have been set by for dietary intake and also for exercise recommendations. And the values that you see on food labels, which will be on another a secondary quick video, is based upon a 2,000 calorie diet. Now I'm going to offer you an opportunity to do a quick assessment of assessing your body composition through a machine that takes about 60 minutes or 60 seconds to do, and then I'll do an interpretation with you that can calculate or estimate your basal metabolic rate and give you an idea, a calculation of your muscle mass and your body fat and also a few other things, and that'll give you an idea about what kind of calculation or how many calories that you need if you'd like to do that, and I'll give you a message on that later. Nutrients come in either macro, which means that we need a large amount of it, or micro, which means we need micro amounts of it. The macro ones are the ones that we most commonly concern ourselves with tracking: carbs, protein, and fats. The micros are our vitamins and minerals, just as important, and specifically the micronutrient calcium, sodium, vitamin D, iron. Those are often the ones, folate, those are the ones that we tend to be most attuned to. Water is really important. Some of you are looking at making your water consumption part of your behavior change. It's important for all functions of your body. Your body, you're almost 75% water, depending on where you are in your lifespan. It's important for it. It consists of your brain is mostly water, your blood, your cells, your lymph. It is just super important with keeping our body function as it is supposed to be. Keeps us living. We can live a lot longer without food than we can without water. And we don't need to drink bottled water. If anything, our water is extremely safe. It more than likely is a taste issue for you if you prefer bottled water. If you aren't aware of it, you can go to the sustainability office and you can get a bottle free. And actually, you can get a coffee mug or a bottle water, a bottle, refillable bottle, and you can utilize it in a number of places in the city and get discounted coffee or water. And that is a great thing to do. And only if it really is, our water is super safe. We don't know exactly how much water we need to consume. There's an estimate, but just know that the fluid that you take in as soup, juice, drinks, all count toward your consumption. If you look at your urine color and it looks more like light lemonade, you're probably pretty good with your fluid values. If you perspire a lot, you exercise a lot, it's hot and humid weather, your fluid or your water intake should be increased. Oh, by the way, caffeinated beverages aren't really very good contributors for your water consumption, and you want to make sure that you're looking at high caloric beverages as not a big contributor because those can be slippery slopes for getting too many calories in. But we got to count those in as our caloric intake. So water is a macro, carbs are a macro. I want to remind you that carbs are not the enemy because that is our body's main source of energy. It's what our body uses primarily for our daily activities. Our muscles need it during exercise, especially high intensity exercise. Our brain uses it primarily, our blood cells. We use carbohydrates as fuel. We store it on board in our liver, in our muscles. A lot of carbohydrate, and really it is important. And we know that carbohydrates can be broken up into categories as either simple or complex. And carbohydrates are necessary in our diet and or in our body to function. And we tend to give simple carbohydrates a bad rap, and we can look at adding too many simple carbohydrates in our diet as potentially being part of a diet that's not well balanced. And you can see when you do your reading, they give a bad rap to artificial sweeteners as not being a good thing and potentially causing a problem to insulin. And I wanted to just note that there's a little problem with that. And that is that we now know that those studies have been performed on rodents, otherwise known as rats and mice. And I found just a couple articles. This is a systematic review, and that means it's a review of articles. And those, or a meta-analysis, which looks at articles and does a statistical analysis of these articles to see does um, substituting artificial sweeteners influence how insulin works in our body? Does it change the way that we are our hunger for sweet foods? Does it change the way that we eat? Does it contribute to obesity? Does it make it difficult for obesity? And the truth is that more and more what we're finding now is that it's not the findings that have been identified in rodents is not the case with humans. And so it's more likely to be beneficial and likely to be helpful for individuals for weight management, weight loss, and weight control. So, in the amount that you need to consume for those horrible side effects that were looked at with rodents is way off the spectrum that you could consume in your diet. So we're finding out more that we should not be afraid that those are part of a way of managing body weight and decreasing calories. Complex carbohydrates or whole grains, fruits and vegetables really should be the bulk of our carbohydrates. So whole grain pastas, uh, looking at beans, legumes, black beans, pinto beans, navy beans. So looking at, um, oh goodness sakes, tempeh, tofu. Those are really or soybeans. Those are going to give us some complex, and actually those give us protein too. Those are really are really good sources, and those give us some fiber, but we don't need when we look at that RDA to then remember RDA is just that amount to not get a negative to get a deficiency. It's 130 grams, and that's very little, very little. So when we calculate our carbohydrate needs, it's usually well over 130 grams, especially if you are an athlete, an endurance athlete, or an individual that has a caloric need well over 2,000 calories. So that RDA for carbohydrates is really quite low, and most of us do just fine meeting that value. Fiber is important for our health. It helps our intestines. It helps move food through our GI tract. It helps with moving with our cholesterol, with our through our for our heart health, for our um, decreasing our risk for colorectal cancer. It's really, really important for us. And to be able to get enough fiber, it is possible to do, especially with some of the foods that are recommended that's available now with chia seeds, hemp seeds. Much easier to get the 25 grams for women and 38 grams for men. It's best to get it through foods, through your diet, but you can certainly supplement it if necessary. So we're looking at grains, nuts, seeds. So variety of foods is good. Protein is important for muscles, bones, enzymes. We know that we have certain proteins that are essential and we need to consume them. Foods can be either complete, and when we look at our complete proteins, those are typically from animal sources. Incomplete proteins we have to eat in combination, but we don't need to eat them at the same meal. We just need to eat them throughout the day. And so I want to just point out for the protein, the recommendation is between 10 to 35% of daily calories. And I'm going to suggest to you that that range, I would lean toward the higher value because we have new recommendations that are identified for individuals that are resistance training, trying to gain muscle, or individuals that are trying to that are on caloric restrictive diets, or individuals that are as they get over the age of 50. And here's a couple papers right here. So a higher protein intake using caloric restriction. So this first paper, they looked at just having 1 gram per kg. The RDA is 0.8. So they looked at if you get at least 1 gram per kilogram, that is necessary. So more protein than what is the RDA if you're on a caloric restriction diet. That's going to help you to maintain, not necessarily maintain, but as you lose weight, you're going to lose some lean muscle because you lose body fat and you won't need as much muscle because you're going to be a lower body weight, but to maintain some of the integrity of your body mass. And the second article suggests that 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kg, so even more than that, like twice, almost twice as much of the RDA is necessary if you're in a resistance training program. So we're not as concerned about those that RDA. So I'm suggesting to you that as long as you are, especially with a caloric restriction, consuming plenty of water, getting that protein throughout the day, you're on a good path with keeping your protein, your good quality lean muscle. Very, very important. Fats are necessary. We were really afraid of fat for the longest time. Fat's important. It is those low fat foods have added a lot of simple sugar to the ingredients instead. And so when we look at our foods, no fat, low fat is not necessarily always great, but if you look at your high protein, low fat um, yogurts, for example, or low sugar, if they say low fat, high protein, and low sugar, you can see that they've got a really nice profile on them. They don't put a lot of sugar in it instead of taking the fat away, but they've added more protein to it to give it more oomph. So, but fat is necessary because it does help with our vitamins absorption. It's necessary for our nervous system, adds good taste to food, and it also is important for, goodness sakes, for vitamin absorption. Food comes, saturated fat is in our, is solid at room temperature, so that would be like our fat that we find on our meats. That is the kind of fat that we want to do our best to decrease our amounts. And as we look at sustainability, eating less, even 1 day a week, less of animal fat, animal sources is a great way to contribute to less, to a more sustainable earth. And so not only is it good for the earth, it's actually good for your body. The monounsaturated fats are typically our plant fats, so having more plant, olive, avocados. We used to be afraid of avocados, but they're actually really healthy for us. And polyunsaturated are also a really good source of fats. Cholesterol is necessary for hormones, and it's not as much of a worry of how much we eat, but if we eat a lot of saturated fat, our body will make extra cholesterol. And if you have a family history of heart disease, then it's something specifically to be concerned about. Trans fat is a fat that is found in a lot of baked goods, and that is, you'll find that many products will now say zero trans fats. It's because it's linked with heart disease. And the another key point of fat is the way the structure of the fats can influence your blood health. And you may have heard of omega-3 fatty acids and those being important for heart health. And some vitamins will say fish oils, for example, have high omega-3 fatty acids, and those are really healthy for your heart. You won't find omega-6 fatty acid vitamins because we have a really easy way of getting omega-6 fatty acids in our diet in many foods. What we don't get enough of is the 3. And I want to show you, this is this is a double slide, didn't mean to do that. What the problem is the relationship of the 3 to 6. So we want more 3s, but we don't necessarily have to be concerned about our 6s so much. We just want to try to get sources of food that have more 3s. You have probably seen individuals walk around the store and say, don't eat this, it has seed oils. Oh, seed oils, don't eat seed oils. And I just want to tell you that there is nothing, it's not that seeds are a bad thing. Seeds are not bad foods. The thing to be the thing to be aware of with seeds is that when seed oils are in a food, they're typically in foods that are highly processed. And the highly processed foods are going to have more omega-6 components in them. And that's where we have more omega-6s in our diet, which is not what we're looking for. So if you look at the bottom right screen, you'll see safflower oil, almonds, sunflower seeds. You'll see these seeds, which has a high amount of omega-6s. And then at the bottom, chia seeds, flaxseed oil has a high amount of omega-3s. So we're looking at trying to have more of those threes. It's not that pumpkin seeds are bad for you, it's that it's often we're looking for a balance. It's the balance. Don't take sesame seeds out of your diet. It's not that they're unhealthy, okay? If you see pumpkin seeds in an ingredient list, it doesn't mean they're bad, okay? Please, please, please. One ingredient does not a food does not make a food bad. You'll see that on the top it has a comparison of saturated fat, monounsaturated fat, and alpha-linoleic and linoleic. Those are those two essential fatty acids. And so fats, all these dietary fats have a relationship or a ratio of these different types of fats. The important thing is variety in having a variety of these different fats and try not to just always have one particular fat. So being mindful of the choices that you have is the important part. Coconut oil is really great because it's healthy for your heart and brain. And the way that we can think about our fat is trying to focus on limiting our saturated. Do your best to limit the amount of fat that you add while cooking. Try to use leaner sources of meat. Perhaps cook with less beef and eat fewer saturated fats and limit fast food choices. For minerals, calcium is one of the key ones to look at. Calcium is important for our bones. That's going to be important to make sure that we have calcium. If you don't like, you want to get calcium fortified foods. You can look at your readings and find that. If you don't like milk, then you can get calcium fortified foods, and that's a good way to do it. And also a calcium supplement that has vitamin D as well. Vitamins, really important because those are necessary in our metabolism or chemical reactions. I'm not saying that D is the only one, but D is one that is very problematic, especially as we get in the winter time. We only need a little bit of sunshine, but we cover up ourselves with all our scarves and we spend very little time outside. So let's make sure, and you need the sun to convert it. So in the wintertime, when it's sunny outside, get yourself outside for just 10-15 minutes, put your face in the sun, and it's necessary. Uh, Supplements are never a bad thing to consider if you are in a caloric restrictive diet, if you're a vegetarian or vegan, if you have food choices are low, if you are childbearing age, if you know that you have a low iron count, etc. And I skipped that previous slide, but there are other components with food that's necessary, phytochemicals. Natural foods have more than just the nutrients. They also have components that have additional benefits. For instance, tomatoes have lycopene, and every male should be having tomatoes. I don't care if it's ketchup, it's important for prostate health. So there are components in foods other than just the vitamins and minerals and the macronutrients. All is good for you. All right. Well, I went a little bit too long, but that is your introduction to nutrition, and I hope you learned something from this.